Are we starting again?
Yeah.
Third time's the charm. Hello and welcome back. We are back in my room because Colorado has snowed a lot and it is very chilly, and it's actually still very chilly in my room. But nonetheless, I'm excited because this week I read Martha Hall Kelly's Lost Roses, and guys, I did it again. I read book 2 before I read book 1, despite the fact that book 1 is at the top. Anyway, so I 100% judged a book by its cover because I thought it was pretty, and I was not disappointed. It was a great book. I really enjoyed it. And I know usually I say this at the end, but I feel like since I'm already talking about it, I'll just go ahead and say it now. I really think that it would take a lot for you to not enjoy this book. I think it's more likely that if you're not into historical fiction, you might just kind of feel a little bit like meh about it. But really, it kind of has everything. It has action, it has adventure, it has revolution, it has a little bit of romance, it has a whole lot of friendship, there's drama. I really do think that this book has a little bit of something for basically everybody. So as I kind of mentioned, it is a historical fiction book. It takes place over the course of 1914 to 1921, so that covers most of World War I as well as the Russian Revolution, which is really central to this book, because a good chunk of the book takes place in Russia. So there are kind of 3 storylines that are happening all at the same time. One concerns Eliza Faraday, and this is where the historical fiction aspect of this book gets really interesting, because Eliza Faraday was actually a real person. She was an American socialite and philanthropist, and she did a lot to help the Russian community, especially after the revolution, when a ton of emigres were basically seeking asylum. So it covers her, and that's actually something that's interesting about Lilac Girls and Kelly's upcoming novel, is because she looks at the various women in the Faraday family. So it's Eliza, her daughter Caroline, and actually her mother Caroline, which gets it a little confusing because I think Lilac Girls is the daughter, and I think the upcoming book is going to be the mom. But it's basically kind of how all of these women are really strong and what they do to help their community. And so I think that, as a quick aside, before I get into the other kind of 2 storylines, is also really interesting because this book isn't explicitly feminist, but I did really appreciate how female-centric it was. There are certainly male characters. I don't think I've ever really had a book that's completely one sex. But the thing that I liked about it is that I feel like even though most books are co-ed, I feel like not as many books are like so female-centric. Like, it is 100% Eliza's story and Sophia's story and even Varenka's story, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But there are some like vaguely explicit references. There's one scene with Eliza and her mother when they're in Southampton, and this group of other women come in and they're all like hoity-toity, like trying to tell them what to do. And Eliza's mom is like, nuh-uh, go back to your anti-suffragette meeting. Like, we don't want to have any of your drama here. And I just thought that was really awesome. I enjoyed that, especially just since, given the time that we're in, between between the U.S.'s election next week, and then also the fact that it's 100 years of women gaining the right to vote, or at least white women gaining the right to vote. I just felt like it was kind of coincidentally very timely. So, back to the other storylines. So one's Eliza and her life, both like as an individual and also as it relates to the other characters. The second main storyline is Sophia. I always mess up her last name. Streshnaeva? I'm not great with Russian, so some of these pronunciations might be a little iffy. So she and her sister Luba, which is Russian for love, they are of the Russian aristocracy. They're cousins to the Romanovs, who, as I'm sure most, if not all of us know, were the royal family at the time of the Russian Revolution, and they died, and it's kind of sad, even though Tsar Nicholas arguably wasn't a very good leader at all. But despite all that, it really sucks for Sophia and Luba and their family, because even though, like, they're fictional characters and we don't necessarily have, like, a ton of time with the dad or the stepmom, who's kind of easy to get annoyed at, like, they genuinely seem to be good people, and, like, it's just really heartbreaking to hear some of the other characters call them pigs and parasites, because, I mean, their family, the Streshnaivas, they really are just trying to give the little people in their town, like, a place to work at the linen factory. They're trying to give them a fair wage. I do think that they're not fully aware of their privilege, so I do see where that's problematic. But, like, they're not jerks. And so seeing what happens to them is heartbreaking. And some of what happens to them has to do with Varenka, the other character I mentioned. So Varenka is a Russian peasant girl. And honestly, at the beginning of the book, I really liked Varenka. I felt kind of bad for her, I'll be honest. She's this little peasant girl whose father has died, her mom's really sick, and she lives with this guardian who went, they didn't call it a gulag, but I'm imagining that it's kind of gulag-esque prison. Anyway, after he comes back, he's totally changed, low-key kind of evil, low-key kind of crazy, and very manipulative. So, like, Varenka gets a job as Sophia's nanny for her son Max, who also happens to be Eliza's godson. And Varenka's guardian, Taras, is, like, he's moving up in the Bolshevik party. So he is one of the main reasons that Sophia's family runs into trouble. And I really don't want to give away too many spoilers, but, like, oh my gosh, the character development, oh, I think that honestly might be one of my favorite parts of this book. I mean, the plot was great. I think that the overlapping timelines worked really well. And, like, especially if you do like history, I think between the, dramatic irony, for lack of a better word, that, like, you know what's going to happen to Russia, and you know what's going to happen to the Romanovs, because there's a scene where you actually meet, like, Tatiana and Olga, and they're such sweet little girls, and you just really feel for them, and you're like, oh my gosh, they're gonna die. That is, like, really emotionally moving and engaging, but then also the dramatic irony of, I will spoil this a little bit. There's some drama with Varenka, Sophia, and Max, and like, they all get separated because Bolsheviks, war, etc. And you're just like, oh my gosh, you're in the city at the same time. Oh my gosh, like, your son is maybe not in the best position, but you don't know that. And it just makes it so exciting. But the other thing that I think makes it really exciting is the character development. Because, now, Eliza doesn't develop a whole lot. Like, she definitely becomes a little bit more self-aware of who she is, what she can do, what her status means. But the character development of Sophia and Varenka is just phenomenal. As I said, at the beginning of the book, I kind of felt bad for Varenka because she seemed to be in a really bad position. And by the end, she wasn't, like, actually the villain, but she really, really frustrated me. Like, she just becomes so selfish and brainwashed, in my opinion, I think, that she's just, like, really easy to dislike. And you just kind of see her interactions with Sophia and Eliza later on near the end of the book, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, how could you do that? Sophia, on the other hand, instead of becoming arguably worse in terms of, like, character traits, she becomes so much stronger. Because, like, at the beginning, she was very kind, she was very sweet. I realize those are synonyms, but, like, she just basically seemed to be your smart, sweet girl who kind of doesn't know how good she has it. But, you know, after being kept captive by the Bolsheviks for a year and being starved and escaping and trying to find her son and having to sell her hair and see the dire situation of her fellow Russians who escaped, you just see how strong she becomes. And that's just really satisfying to see. So overall, again, I really enjoyed the book. I really think that you're going to enjoy it as well. That's all I have for Lost Roses. Definitely give it a shot, especially if you do like historical fiction. But yeah, that's all I have. Next week, I will be reviewing Twitter friend Ash Knight's book Stay. I'm very excited to check that out and get back with my thoughts. Thanks.